UK boxing blogger news coming right back at ya. Today I've got an introduction for a special guest who's going to be joining me on the reporting side of boxing and breaking news issues coming to the sport of boxing. I've got joining me today is Big C. How are we, Big C?
I'm good, man. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. If anybody wants to follow Big C on Twitter, you can follow him at Big C BB News, and that stands for what, Big C?
Big C Boxing Blogger News.
Right, yeah, so go check him out on Twitter. He'll be retweeting loads of boxing breaking news and the videos we do on here. Right, so what we want to talk to the fans about today is Matthew Macklin. Obviously, his career seems to be ended at the weekend with a brutal KO towards the end of the fight over in Ireland. It was meant to be his big homecoming or party fight that was going to set him up for a world title shot, but it ended in disaster. So what we want to do is maybe talk about the fight a little bit and the subject matter at hand that we're going to discuss in detail today is, was Macklin an overrated puncher and was he an overrated fighter like for what the boxing fans are judging him as now, because he seems to get a lot of credit for being a world-class fighter, always claimed to be above the other middleweights in England, like your Martin Murrays, Darren Barker and Andy Lee, and he seems to have a reputation as a bit of a puncher, even though he's never really knocked out any high-level guys. Right, so I'll start with Big C. Let's go on about punching power. What do you think about his punching power, Big C?
Well, as a puncher, I think definitely he's got to be overrated. I mean, because when you look at actual KOs that, how can you put it, would say was actual significant, is Wayne Alcock. I mean, that's a British class fighter who's never, he hasn't really achieved anything. As in, like I say, that I mean, he KO'd him. Askelainen, European champion. Maybe in my eyes, it could have gone on a little bit longer. Maybe an early stoppage, but again, I mean, okay, so he's KO'd him. I mean, that's one of the main people. And then if you're, that's them sort of levels of fighters. You know, European champion level. I mean, British as well. I mean, for a guy who is supposed to be a world-class fighter, that, you know, that doesn't prove anything in my eyes.
So what you're saying is, like, these guys are not they're not like world-class or world champions that he's knocking out. So it's like power's not really translating to that sort of level. So it's not a proven world-class power.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to find the words without being like I'm putting it down. Yeah, disrespectful on it is by knocking them out. To me, that doesn't prove that he's got an amazing punching power. That doesn't prove to me that he's a big puncher. So I say, okay, yeah, that's the level they're at. And then you look at Joachim, who you know, he was a world champion and that. Again, you know, it was light middleweight. Conditioning may be a question.
Yeah, I remember that. There was a bit of question mark about his conditioning before that fight. Yeah, I see.
So that's what I mean. You know, to me, nah.
No, he's not a big puncher.
No, not for punching power. No, Matthew Macklin's not a big puncher in my eyes.
Well, yeah, I got a second you one on that, Big Chris. Yeah, I agree with you. Like Wayne Alcock, yeah, again, you're spot on there. That was just Wayne Alcock was a beast. Let's not get that mixed up. You know, for those American fans who don't know, you know, he's a guy from Birmingham, solid middleweight, you know, and he's in exciting fights. But yeah, Macklin knocked him out on his, I think it was like one of his first fights at middleweight. Decent level knockout. But again, Wayne Alcock, I know he had a world title fight, but he isn't a world class fighter. No, I get that. No. And then Askelainen as well. You know, I think before that he was a European champion, but he was noted for like 2 fights with Silvestre, one being a knockout, and then one being a knockout loss. So, you know, I think if you look at that guy's record as well, he was just a decent European level fighter, not even a very good one. Yeah. You know, and again, as you said rightly so, that there was question marks about that stoppage. I remember that it was like a flash, heavyish knockdown, and the referee could have probably let that go on. I agree with you on that. Then Joachim Macklin as well. But if you look through Macklin's record, I know he's a bit of a puncher at light middleweight, but he ain't really knocked too many guys out, and especially of late as well. How do you feel about him being a world-class fighter?
Look, you've got to look at what's there in front of you, right? Again, not being disrespectful to me, Macklin, the fights that he's been involved with, it get you excited, get boxing fans excited. The big fights, he's lost in them. You know, he hasn't impressed. Okay, yeah, granted the Felix Sturm fight, yeah, I get that. You know, but look, the other chances he's had, yeah, he hasn't shown quite a few things. He definitely hasn't shown punching power. Not in my eyes, definitely not.
Yeah, see, when he seems to step up, he's been taken out as well. Like Martinez got taken out in that fight. He got taken out in spectacular fashion by the Triple G fight, and he also just been taken out by Highland in his last fight. To me, I don't know how you feel. I think when he stepped up to that elite level, especially in recent years, he's been found wanting for that elite level toughness. You know, he seems to, when he stepped up, he seems to be able to get hurt by the shots. If you put things in perspectives, you know, like Martin Murray, just use an example, around the same sort of time, within like 7-8 months of each other, they both fought Martinez. Once Macklin couldn't carry the shot or hold the shot, rather, couldn't hold the shot as well as Martin Murray. You know, so there, I think there's some question marks about his durability at that level as well. So I'd have to agree with you there. I don't think once he's not, you know, I know you said something to me about the round table thing before. You know, when they had Andy Lee,
Martin Murray,
Darren Barker,
yep,
and Macklin himself. They're all round the table. It's a Sky Sports round table conversation. They all talk about each other's careers and how they rate each other. And they're all pretty honest. What you pointed something out to me? Can you remember what that was, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching it at the time. I wouldn't say so much the attitude that Macklin had. He definitely had a hive opinion of himself compared to the others. I mean, bearing in mind, he sat there with Darren Barker at the time, who I believe had just become the IBF.
Yep.
Andy Lee, I wouldn't say, it's not so much I'm a fan of Andy Lee. I respect, you know, he's fought in America from a younger age. You know, he went out there. I like him. I like the way he boxes, that sort of thing.
Amateur, yeah.
Yeah, very good boxer as well. And
and Martin Murray himself, yeah.
I forget the name of who he when he was it Brandon Rios that he fought years ago.
Who's that?
No, not Rios.
Chavez.
He lost to. No, his first loss, Andy Lee's loss.
First Andy Lee lost. Oh, I can't really remember that one. I think that was. Oh yeah, I remember that guy. That was that tough fight on HB.
Brandon Vera.
Brian Vera, that's the one. Yeah.
And the thing was, Brian Vera, that's it, yeah.
Tough guy. Yeah,
and the thing is, you know, and after that, a little bit later on in his career, he chased him, you know, and he fought him again, and he won.
Yeah.
You know, like to say, yeah.
Because he's been in there with guys like, you know, Chavez Jr. I know that was a big fight at the time. You know, the two top ranked guys from like the Mexican and the Irish guy that was being touted come together. He started off really well in that fight. You know, he's obviously had 2 fights with Brandon Vera, and he's probably been in there with, you know, a tougher opposition than Macklin, other than taking away the big fights that Macklin's been destroyed. You know, I'd have to, you know, he's not on a level completely above him to be disrespectful in the way he was.
I mean, I don't think when you look at them, I don't think he was on a level and had the fights that any of them 3 have had. That's the same as like Darren Barker, Andy Lee, and Martin Murray.
Well, see, because Martin Murray at the time as well had already been a draw with Felix Sturm, so he didn't lose to him. And should have won probably. And he'd been in there with Martinez. Martinez couldn't hurt him, yet he had him down.
Went over to Argentina.
So how can you sort of pretend you're a level above them guys when you got knocked out by Martinez and Martin Murray's there, who went over in the Lion's Den and put him down, and Martinez didn't look like he'd even hurt him.
No.
So
it goes back to my thing with that. It just seems it's not Matthew Macklin. Even, I mean, apart from Martin Murray, I mean, even the way the others were talking to him, and this is my point, what I'm trying to get to, even with, you know, you go to anything in boxing, he seems to be, he's held in a higher regard than what I believe he actually should be. And it's almost as like, I wouldn't say it's fooled a few people, but even, like I say, even to a few boxers and all that, I think they give him a little bit too much respect for what he's actually done.
Yeah, because he went, obviously, I think what helped him, man, like, he's obviously had a he had an epic fight with Jamie Moore. That was classic at light middleweight. You know, so he's forever in the UK fight fans' hearts. You know, he also had that. He's got that Irish background. He had. He's been linked with Andy Lee, Matthew Macklin, Darren Barker for so long. He's created big impact. Then he obviously was with Hatton Boxing Promotions at the time, I think. He knocks out Elcock and then knocks out Askalainen, who was a good European level player, and Silvestre was, I think, fringe world class, and he had some wins over Silvestre, so it hyped him up as a bit of a puncher, as we discussed earlier, and put him up there in a certain level at a different weight, because his first 2 fights at middleweight were pretty good, even though they were only fringe European level or just a nice solid European level. I think then he signed somewhere like a fight or two later, he goes and signs with Lou DiBella over in America, and he had Martinez, the #1 middleweight, and he talked it up, sold it up to the HBO network. He had a massive following with the Irish fans. They loved their token Irish guy over in America, you know, like they done with John Duddy and Andy Lee himself, you know. So if there's a guy over in America who loves to be Irish, even though he's from Birmingham, but in a minute, it's not right. You play that right, it can create a big interest, you know. And I think
the same little bit with like Tyson Fury. Of course, there's that, you know, the traveller background and all that, but you know, he's from Manchester and that.
That could work. He could have some crossover appeal if he goes over there soon. You know, if he gets the right fights. You know, I think timing. I think, because he got caught in all that hype in a way, Macklin, going back to Macklin, I think that gives him an impression that he's bigger than them. Yeah. You know, and I think that's wrongly so. Because if you go and look at performances, do the eye test, do the record test, check out how he can hold a punch compared to the others. You know, out of them three, I think, personally myself, he could hold a punch just as well as Andy Lee, but probably can hold a punch better than Darren Barker, but definitely can't hold a punch better than Murray. And that's proven. He hasn't got the defense of a Murray, and he hasn't got the defense of an Andy Lee.
No way.
And he may, you know, I think personally now was always an overrated fighter. He had overrated punch power, and now we'll get to the last thing to do with Macklin. He's a shot fighter.
Yeah.
Why do you think he's shot?
Do you know what? Like I say, I'm saying it again, I don't want to come across like there's any disrespect towards Macklin, because I appreciate what he is. He's a boxer, right? And that's when you're looking at the facts. The guy turned pro at a young age. Yeah, this guy's been boxing from a teenager, professionally. And like you say, he has had wars. You know, the one with Jamie Moore. You know, obviously for the British fight fans, we're more aware of that, but that was a big thing at the time. You know, and the other thing that I'm taking away from the fight on Saturday night is the guy's 32, right? Now, to me,
that's not an old
at
age.
32, he should still have, he should still be having a bit more resistance. And that, to me, I think that's what it is. Though I think he's been pro from a young age, too many wars. I think he's, like I say, he's taken, you know, some shots over the years, and I think it's just a sad fact that it's maybe caught up with him quicker than it has done some other boxers. And I think that's what we're faced with now with Matthew, and I think it's got to be, because like I say again, going in, you know, for a boxer who he fought Saturday night, it was like, again, like I see the other day with the odds. I mean, the odds were crazy for it. I couldn't understand why Macklin was such a high favourite for it. But if I'm being honest, I still expected him to win that.
Oh, so did I, you know, but I think the warning signs are there. Yeah, people that don't know Macklin, especially the US fight fans, you know, Macklin was in a lot of gym wars as young. He's got that fighting style where he trades, don't have a lot of defence, like to go on the attack and just have grueling fights. You know, he had some grueling fights and barn burners even before the Jamie Moore fight. You know, and Jamie Moore would be one of the most legendary grueling grudge matches ever in a UK boxing ring. You know, and since he's moved up to middleweight, he's not a big middleweight. You know, he's took some shots off some big guys. Dress it up how you like. He hasn't got the power that translates to really hurting some of the biggest and strongest middleweights at all. And he took a he took some decent shots. He worked really hard in that Stern fight. I had him maybe just nicking it because Stern's quite lazy at times, but he did take some shots off Stern. And the fight before Stern, I remember he took off that Varon guy. He took some solid shots off that guy, you know. And that's probably one of the reasons why they probably wanted to take the fight, because he had a good little name and his punch and power didn't seem to trouble a guy in the fight before for the European title, and they maybe thought it was a soft fight and underestimated Macklin a little bit. But then Martinez, he took a beating towards the end of that fight. He looked nice and sharp, but again, he never had the power to trouble Martinez. Joachim Macklin fight was again what it was. Golovkin took a lot out of him, even though it was a brutal body shot. But then the Lamar Russ fight, this is where it starts getting to the end for me. He still looked like he could probably have performed better that night against Highland than just the good weekend gone by. But Highland, that Russ fight, he took some shots off that big dude, and I think that was he pushed a lot out that night, and I think that was his last effort in a fight that was quite meaningless, quite frankly. And his last fight over in Germany, it was an 8-round majority decision. He could have lost that fight, and he seemed to push everything out. It's like every punch he was throwing seemed like it was hard work. He looked like a shot fighter to me. I actually interviewed Joe Gallagher, questioned him on that. He said it's because it was not in America, a big fight. He's been sparring well. I took what Joe Gallagher said at that time, because Joe Gallagher's one of the best trainers in the UK and the world, period, in my opinion. Yeah. And the Highland guy, you had a big, strong, tough, durable guy, relentless energy, sapping style. You know, didn't punch particularly hard, but I can just imagine solid punches coming at you. And from the round one, Macklin seemed uncomfortable. He was getting forced to work, and he didn't seem to have the same speed and snap on his punching just to even get respect out of the guy. And he looked like he forced every single last ounce of it out of his body and was just exhausted. So I think we've just summarised that up as best as we can.
Yeah.
So we think, with all due respect, and Macklin has been a great British fighter to watch for the fans. All respect.
It is.
Great
That's what
draw.
I mean. I'm not taking that away from him. I'm just, how can I put it? I don't think he's not a world class fighter. The chances that he's had when he's got to prove, yeah, all right, you know, he's fought Golovkin. I get that, you know, he's one of the latest killers who's supposed to be, you know, the biggest thing in the middleweight, and that at the moment, you know, still there's going to be a couple of fights. We'll see how he gets on. Yeah,
and we'll see how he comes.
But like I say, yeah, Matthew Macklin, just like I say, just once he gets to that level, he doesn't do the biz.
Right, okay, so there's our assessment. Overrated punching power, overrated level to the fans and to the media, and he should now retire because he looks to be a shot-worn fighter as well. But many thanks for all the great moments you've gave us in the ring, Matthew Macklin. We are fans. He's doing some great things over in the gym. He's an intelligent guy. You know, I think the only way he should even think about coming back to the ring is if he fights Andy Lee. If Andy Lee beats Korobov for a world title crack, just get that fight done. Maybe have a nice rest. Other than that, Matthew Macklin, in my opinion, and Big C's opinion, should never come to a boxing ring again. This is UK Boxing Blogger, and Big C out.